Welcome everybody to CustomerX Con 2020. This has been 1 year in the making exactly, and we're super excited to be putting on a conference for CustomerX professionals, as we call it, which means professionals in customer marketing, customer advocacy, customer experience, customer engagement. This is our kickoff session. Really thrilled to have you all. My name is Jeff Ernst. I'm one of the co-founders of the CustomerX Pros community, as well as co-founder and CEO of Slab5. And I'm joined by Howard Fields, one of my other co-founders of our community. Howard, just say a quick hello.
Hello.
And people feel free to join by video if you'd like. You don't have to. What we want to do in this session is first, I just want to give you an overview of why we created this conference and what you're going to experience over the next 5 days, business days. And that's going to be grounded in my years and years in the trenches as a practitioner of customer marketing and customer voice and running customer programs. And then Howard's also going to give his perspective coming from a senior executive, giving you more of the macro view of what senior executives are looking for, and then what that means for the opportunity that's ahead of us here. But before we jump in, I have to really thank the huge group of people that helped make this conference possible. We couldn't have done it without these people. And just let me give you a quick background on how this came about. As I said, it was exactly a year ago that we decided we wanted to put on a conference. And we realized we didn't want to just put a conference where we in our ivory towers picked a bunch of topics and got a bunch of sponsors and threw content at you. Instead, what we did is we created a steering committee of you people, of practitioners, as you can see all the people on the screen right now. And so this steering committee came together. They picked the topics, they picked the formats, they picked the durations. And so it's truly a crowdsourced conference. It's the only conference, as we say, that's designed by senior level CustomerX pros for senior level CustomerX pros. And so you're going to be seeing a lot of these faces over the next 5 days. And I just want to thank them once again for being so willing to be part of this event. And as many of you know, this event was supposed to be in person back on May 4th and 5th, but the best laid plans, of course, were disrupted by COVID. And so now we're doing it in October and November. And still, I hope we're going to bring as much of the content as we would have done in person to you here in the virtual setting. For people that aren't familiar with CustomerX, I want to just remind you of what the mission is of this community. Really what we're looking to do as a community is we're looking to elevate the impact, influence, and the appreciation of the CustomerX roles, because you have to admit, we don't always get the most resources and we don't always get the most respect or appreciation for what we do, but what we do is very hard and we all deserve a lot of credit for that. We want to do that by connecting our work to the strategic growth initiatives. And I'm going to be talking over the next 10 minutes or so exactly what we mean by strategic growth initiatives, but these are the things that our C-level suite cares about. And we want to do it in a way that makes our CustomerX roles a career path itself to the C-suite. We want to be able to promote all of our work, all of our careers, all of our reputations, so that we are all on a path to the C-suite if we're not already there. Okay, so that's the mission of the CustomerX community. We founded it about 2 years ago, and this is our first actual conference. Just a little bit of background on me. Why should you listen to what I have to say? Well, yeah, that's for you to decide, but let me just give you a little bit of backstory and you can decide whether you want to listen to me or not. But I've been doing customer marketing since before it was a thing. You know, I've been doing it as a CMO in many companies back in the 90s and early 2000s, even before we had people with customer marketing titles. Always really guiding and figuring out how to mobilize customers in a two-way exchange of value to help grow the company. And so back in 2010, I had the great opportunity to become a Forrester analyst, serving CMOs and advising them on customer engagement. And I said in a keynote speech back in 2010, almost 10 years ago to the day, that customer marketing, when done right, is the most important function in any company. And as I was saying this and doing this, I was helping CMOs figure out how to elevate the role and actually establish a role of customer marketing that's not just the keep the lights on functions, but that is actually playing a more strategic role around customer engagement and the strategic growth goals of the company. And so I did that for several years, really enjoyed it till I got to the point where our CEO said, Jeff, we want you to practice what you preach and do what you've been advising our clients at Forrester to do. We want you to do that for Forrester itself. So I became VP of Marketing at Forrester and realized this was a great opportunity to not only practice what I preach, but to really get the company going again and really help figure out how can marketing at this company actually drive pipeline, which it had never done before. And so part of what I did there, the short story version of this, is I created a global customer voice and engagement program called Forrester Frontlines. It was the first time Forrester had ever done anything like this, and it was hugely successful. And what this program did is it offered a two-way exchange of value, which you're going to hear me say a lot, which allowed our clients to come into the special group, and basically we gave them opportunities for them to showcase their insights, to share their own thought leadership, to associate their brand with Forrester's brand. And it was phenomenally successful, not only at driving customer engagement and making customers happy and helping them get more value out of their experience with Forrester, but it also drove pipeline for the first time, because core to this program was that we were capturing the voice of our customers in audio and video format, and then using that to then overcome the biggest obstacles we were facing in the market, and the biggest objections and the biggest what I call questions, fears, and doubts that buyers were facing in the market when considering whether to do business with Forrester. And so this was a huge shift back in this was about 2012, going from transforming a company from that had only ever promoted itself by giving away free analyst reports and free analyst time, now to a company that was actually showcasing the value of being a client. And I know every customer marketer I deal with is at some stage of that shift as well, from being very product centric to being very customer centric. And so let's fast forward to today. And today, if I were to update my quote, it would be this: connect your work to the strategic growth initiatives that your C-level executives care about, and your C-level executives will care about your work. Because we all work in this very tough field where we never get as much recognition and support and resources as we need, and we're lone wolves in a lot of companies. But that doesn't mean that we can't raise and elevate our game. And that's what we're here today to do, is to really raise and elevate our game, to have much more of a strategic impact and be recognized by the executives in our companies. So let me just tell you what we mean by strategic growth initiatives, because as we've all grown up in customer marketing, we have to admit that we get so bogged down in some of the day-to-day activities, which I call the keep the lights on activities. This is writing case studies, getting happy quotes, and paying customers to write peer reviews, 5-star reviews, testimony videos, you name it. So these are things that we can't just ignore, right? We have to do these things. These are staples of the job, but they're also what I call the keep the lights on activities. And if this is all we focus on, we're never going to get the appreciation, the resources, or the recognition that we need to really make the impact in our companies that we want to make. And so when I talk about driving strategic growth initiatives of our companies, these are the initiatives that our C-level executives care most about. And I talk to C-level executives all the time, and this is what they're telling me they want, both from their marketing departments as well as from their customer engagement, customer programs people. Anybody in the SaaS or renewal subscription model business is going to want to improve retention, right? That's top of mind. So how can we be driving customers to improve retention? Well, we're going to do that by helping them help each other get more use of the products or services that we have, discover best practices, get more value so that renewal becomes a no-brainer. Executives are always concerned about launching new products. We're always launching new products or major new releases. That's a great time to capture the voice of your customers who are the early adopters of some of these new products, or the beta customers, and really mobilize them to help build that credibility, or in some cases elevate your message, because a lot of times, as I know so many companies I'm working with right now, they're not only launching new products, but they're launching new platforms that bring a whole bunch of disparate products together, and they're trying to go to market with platforms. Well, that's a great opportunity to have your customers who are doing bits and pieces of your different products start to talk about how they fit together, how they add value, how they are starting to view your platform or your product offerings as much more of a platform. You know, companies are always trying to switch, change markets, like mid-market companies going upstream, to the enterprise companies moving down market. Now, that's a great way, but you always have to earn credibility, especially when you're going up market. What better way to earn credibility in the enterprise space than have a couple of those early enterprise customers that you have talk about how you're transforming their business and what they're doing better by working with you. Land and expand. I think everybody in SaaS knows the expansion drill. We're all being asked to be more involved in expansion. And so that's a great opportunity. Assimilating acquired companies. That's a lot of M&A going on right now, but what happens during an M&A? Well, generally, companies want to start cross-selling within a month or two of assimilating that organization, right? That's usually why a lot of these acquisitions happen. What greater way to drive cross-sell after acquiring a company than to have customers who happen to maybe have been using both products talk about the value of them coming together, or things like that. So you get the idea here. This is really what we mean, and you're going to hear a lot more about this, and you're going to hear in our wrap-up session about a workshop that we're going to be offering that's going to allow you to be on the hot seat and dive deeper into bringing to the table your own strategic initiatives that your executives care the most about, and then we're going to have your peers jump in and give you advice and guidance on how they think that you can actually mobilize customers to help drive those initiatives. Okay, and so at the same time, we have to recognize that the role of customer marketing is changing. And so if we look at the traditional role of customer marketing, you could summarize it in a lot of ways. I choose to summarize it like this. We showcase our customers' successes, and we're usually doing it for customer acquisition purposes or for customer proof or customer evidence. That's historically been the traditional role of customer marketing. And I know from the survey that we did leading up to this session, and Howard's going to share a lot of those results in just a few minutes, and I know a lot of you have moved well beyond that, but still, the definition of the role of customer marketing really has to change and expand. And so here's the way we're looking at it now. So let's wipe the slate clean and start at the foundation level. So at the core, you need to, customer marketing, the core of your new job description is at the foundational level is basically gathering and representing our customer's voice. You're not going to be the voice, but you're going to represent that voice, because we're going to have a session later this week talking about he or she who knows the customer best has the power, right? And so this is a new and increasingly important function of customer marketing. And why is that function becoming more important? Well, because we as customer marketers then need to be infusing that customer voice into every fiber of our company. We need to infuse that into the customer experience by co-creation with our customers of our customer experience. We need to be infusing into product for product roadmaps, infusing it into every single part of the company. We have such a great opportunity to be that force that's infusing customer voice into every fabric of the company. We need to be engaging our customers in ways that make them successful, as well as increase our customer lifetime value in working with those customers. So you're going to hear an awful lot during this conference about new and innovative ways that we're engaging our customers. Super, super exciting. And in the new digital world with COVID, and we're all making lemonade out of lemons, right? I mean, we originally had some bad things being thrown in our lap, but what people are doing now as a result is phenomenal, and almost taking advantage of the situation we're in. And then, of course, we're going to still be showcasing our customer success, but we need to be really thinking about how are we doing that in ways that build their reputation, while also helping us earn trust in the market. Because I've done thousands of buyer interviews, And I can tell you that buyers today, they don't want the traditional customer proof assets that we've been creating, like the case studies and the testimonial videos. They want to hear the first person voice of the customer and what the good, the bad, and the ugly about being a client. Because at the end of the day, any buyer, and when I say buyer, that could be a new logo sale you're trying to close or move through the funnel, or it could even be an existing customer you're trying to expand or renew. Anytime somebody's in buying mode, the name of the game is really trust. Right? If you think about it, as customer marketers, we're in the trust business. We're building trust, we're communicating trust, and we're earning trust. And so that's why we need to be really thinking about helping our customers build their reputation, as well as helping us earn trust and overcome the obstacles that stand in the way. And then finally, I told you you're going to hear me say this over and over again, we need to be mobilizing our customers to drive our company's strategic growth initiatives. And so you're going to hear a lot more during the next week about strategic growth initiatives and what it means to mobilize customers to support those. So moving on, I told Jeannie I was going to be doing this. I don't know if she knew I was going to be doing it like this, but I want to just give you a bright, shining example of somebody who has practiced what we've just been saying and what we're going to be talking about this week. Jeannie Talbot from CloudBees. I just want to congratulate her because on November 1st, officially, she's going to be the new customer marketing director at CloudBees, a big promotion that's well earned. But I also wanted to use her as a bright, shining example of how to connect your work to the strategic growth initiatives of your company, because Jeannie has done a fantastic job. When we started working with her back in, I think, January or February, and she was almost reinventing her program, taking it to the next level, one of the things she did is she had meetings with every C-level executive to really understand what was key on their plate. How could she, what were they struggling with? What were their most important initiatives? And how could her customer marketing program support those? And then she took those back, and then we've been working with her. There's been a lot of work done, and Jeannie's done a phenomenal job figuring out, okay, what should my strategy be and what should my roadmap be for my customer marketing program to align with what those executives care about. And a lot of this, just to give you one example, and I don't want to steal her thunder because she's speaking on a couple of sessions this week, but one of the things was basically having worked with an agency to come up with the 4 new pillars of their brand, of their overall go-to-market message. She put together a brilliant plan to mobilize customers in their voice to help reinforce and demonstrate the 4 key pillars of their new brand strategy. Just absolutely phenomenal, which is, I'm convinced, led to this well-earned promotion. So Jeannie, don't kill me, but I couldn't resist. And so let's just talk about the conference and what you're going to see, and then I want to let Howard jump in. And so the theme of our conference is elevating our game. And there's 4 key things that you need to be thinking about. Or, I mean, there's more than 4, but I kind of grouped things together into 4 for simplicity's sake. But as we go about this week, you're going to hear us talking about some things you need to do to really elevate your game. And the 4 buckets that we have here, one is inspiring engagement. And this is really thinking about what are the new and creative ways that we can engage our customers and give them so much value in this engagement. That's just a perpetual goal of how can we continue to inspire and drive that deeper engagement, get customers closer to us, get customers closer to each other. The second key sub-theme here is leadership and buy-in. How do we demonstrate leadership that helps us earn the buy-in and earn the cooperation? Because a lot of us are lone wolves in our organizations, but we can't, it takes a village, right? We can't do our job alone. We depend on the cooperation and collaboration of sales, of the rest of marketing, if we happen to be in marketing, of customer success, of products, you name it, illegal, right? We can't do our jobs without the collaboration and cooperation of those teams. But we don't have authority over them. And so we have to demonstrate leadership and we have to earn buy-in from people. So there's going to be a lot of talk about that. And then we need to always be thinking about how do we innovate our programs? We can never rest on our laurels or our status quo. How do we innovate? But as we're innovating, keep an eye on the impact, because we can't just do our jobs to check things off the list and get all those keep the lights on activities done and say, we did 34 case studies this quarter and we have 500 5-star reviews on G2, right? that's not going to elevate our careers. So we need to constantly be innovating and always thinking about impact over activity. And then lastly, one of the big things I'm hearing from C-level executives, especially since COVID, is this desire to have their programs teams do more to drive customer to customer engagement. And for a lot of reasons. One, the old-fashioned reason for doing this is just to reduce support costs. But now these C-level executives are starting to realize the more we drive customer to customer engagement, the more we're going to retain, the more we're going to be sticky. And you know what? When they're having conversations with their customers, if they're an executive sponsor, they're doing their road shows, whatever it might be, checking in with customers, this is what customers are telling them. They want to have more exposure, more interaction with their fellow customers. Your customers are demanding this of your executives, even if they're not demanding it of you, but I bet you they're demanding it of you too. So, how does this shape out? Well, this becomes our train tracks for the conference. So extra credit if you can make sense of our transit diagram here. But the four themes that we just talked about are sub-themes: inspiring engagement, leadership buy-in, innovate for impact, and customer engagement. You can see this is what we're doing. This is how all the sessions that you're going to see this week fit in. We've got 16 fantastic sessions. Most of them today, you're going to hear from a couple of industry luminaries. Then the rest of the week and next Monday, you're going to be hearing from practitioners who are doing this in the trenches themselves, or experts who are working with people, with practitioners day in and day out. And so you can see we've got lots of sessions on each of these tracks, and then you can also see several of them, multiple tracks are running through them. But this gives you an idea that we're going to be talking about for inspiring engagement. We're going to be talking about CABs, what happens when customers are not engaging. We're going to be talking about at the fusion of advocacy and loyalty and what we can learn from B2C programs. Today, you're going to be hearing from Lisa Nakano from Forrester, who's going to be talking about why she believes 2021 is the year of the customer marketer. Very looking forward to that. And you're also going to be hearing next from David Meerman Scott, talking about some of the key ideas from his book, Fanocracy, turning customers into fans and fans into customers. On the leadership and buy-in, we're going to be talking about the marketing gap and how to fill and infuse more of the great work and content that we're doing into the rest of our marketing teams. We're going to be talking about career trajectories, both traditional and non-traditional, in the customer marketing career path. We're going to be talking about how customer marketing is a team sport and what you need to be doing to earn that collaboration and respect. And then we're also on the green line, we're going to be talking about customer insights and how you can gain power by being the gatherer of customer insights and the infuser of those into your organizations. And then real quickly on the Innovate for Impact track, we're very excited to have a customer marketing maturity model and phases of maturity and what you need to do to move up. We're going to be talking about how can customer marketing infuse their work into content marketing or collaborate with your content marketing people. So that session's tomorrow. Invite your content marketing people, have them sign up and come. You're going to love that session. It's equally valuable for both. And then we're going to talk about customer stories of the future, and we're going to be debunking some of the myths of what has to be in a customer story. And then on the customer to customer track, on the red line, we're going to be talking about the customer communities of the future. Where do we really need to go? We're going to be talking about executive engagement. This is another thing I'm hearing from your executives, is they want you to not just be engaging end users or power users, but executives at your client sites. And so we have a track on that. So super exciting. And again, I just want to thank everybody. We can't do this without you. This is a community crowdsourced conference, and we've got the best and the brightest here that have pulled together all this great content. They did a lot of work leading up to our intended May date for this, but then when we couldn't do May, they agreed to postpone to the fall and then get their engines going again a couple of weeks ago to start to pull this together for the fall. So I'm going to actually pause right now because I want to turn it over to Howard and let him give you a more of a macro level view of the opportunity and what's driving it, and hopefully some inspiration on why and how you need to change to elevate your game. Howard, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, you all know Jeff, right? But probably not me. So I'll quickly share how we find ourselves together today. I spent 38 years in the corporate world, most of it at IBM. Along the way, I've run strategy, marketing, product management, consulting, sales, sales enablement, channels, and I've even been a chief information officer. Now, for the last 7 years since I left IBM, I've run my own consulting business, which is called Essential Expertise, and I'm the managing partner of that. And that business has led me into a number of startups. And as a result of getting involved in those startups, I currently find myself as the co-CEO of Cognition Corp, which is a B2B analytics and business risk management software company, and also the COO for Unify Impact, which is a B2C play. It's a fintech startup that helps millennials and Gen Z investors align their investments with their values. So I've got my fingers in a lot of different things. I've also served as a CTO. Now, I don't mean Chief Technology Officer when I say that. I mean Chief Troublemaking Officer in each of these roles, because I've always maintained a very clear-eyed customer perspective in every one of these roles. I've spent my career as that irritating guy in the room who always asks the challenging, pragmatic, so what kinds of questions. And about a year ago, the question, maybe it's about 2 years ago now, the question I started asking was one you've probably all asked yourselves, which is, if most organizations believe in customer centricity, why are so many customers still so dissatisfied? That led me on a path to Jeff and to Steve Rankel, who had started a customer-led meetup up in Boston. And I'll talk more about that on Thursday at noon with Erwin Hipsman, where we're going to lead a session that defines a maturity model for your customer marketing program. We'll talk a little bit more about what it means to be customer-led. So with that as an introduction, let's talk about the macro environment and what it means for customer marketing. I'll share my punchline first, right? For those of you who are multitasking. The punchline, it certainly is not one that you're unfamiliar with. COVID has changed our world. And it's taking things that were already underway and accelerating them. So the punchline here is, as digitalization and AI adoption accelerate, this notion of diffusion of customer insight and the programs that come from it across an organization has never been more important. It's never been more consequential. And it is my rather firm belief that the C-suite of the future will be led by executives who've proven themselves highly skilled in harnessing this knowledge and effectively deploying it. So for all the people on this call, your career trajectory has changed. And as bad as COVID is, as bad as all the things that 2020 has brought us is, we may all end up better off in the long run because of it. 2020 clearly has upended our plans, our budgets, our programs, and there's been little time to step back and reflect. We hope the discussions that are going to take place over the next week will provide an opportunity to do so. Perhaps starting with this next question. Will your situation change you, or will you change your situation? And we're going to spend a few minutes talking about this. And I came across this image, which we all can relate to. You might argue that the poor polar bear is helpless to change his world. But I'd argue that a polar bear can still choose to migrate. And while it's uncomfortable, right, we all have similar options. If you've never read Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson and Ken Blanchard, or Our Iceberg is Melting by John Cotter and Holger Rathgeber, I'd suggest you do, because it's quite unlikely that our world will return to what we knew before. Next slide, Jeff. Now, in fact, the data is clear, right? 2020 was a perfect storm. And the data is coming in that's showing that, Yes, it's accelerated a lot of the digital trends that we've put in place over the last few years, but it's also driving permanent behavioral changes in customers and organizations. An article I saw recently predicts that 50% of everything we see as a result of our response to COVID will become permanent. And I should say, this is not just my opinion, right? If you've read Mark Schaefer's book, Marketing Rebellion, or you keep up with Matthew Sweezy at Salesforce.com, who's the author of The Context Marketing Revolution, they've been foreshadowing a lot of this discussion really over the last year and a half. So it's going to play out. The world's going to change around us, hence we got to change with it. Let's move to the next slide, Jeff. Now you can pick whatever spark you like, right? Whether it's COVID or it's economic insecurity or it's social unrest or political dissonance or natural and man-made disasters, or even the rotation from globalism to nationalism, which we're seeing around the world. The combination of these issues has challenged our ability to understand their impact on our world and also on our business. My contention is we're at an inflection point that's as impactful as the dawn of e-commerce. And the degree to which both we as individuals and the organizations we work for adapt and respond may well determine the trajectory of our careers for the next 25 years. As always, the customer is the canary in the coal mine. As they change, so do we. Or so must we. Next slide. Thanks, Jeff. Now, let's use an example. In my analytics company, COVID has turned our face-to-face customer engagement model upside down. Our methodology relied on ensuring the problems that stakeholders didn't want to discuss get exposed and resolved in the room. This means our consultants had to be able to read body language, across a room full of executives, not just on a speaker. How do you do that on Zoom? That was a question we were forced to ask ourselves because the accuracy of our results is highly dependent on this. The answer is you don't do it on Zoom. You have to find another way. You have to unlearn your long-standing assumptions and look past your hidden biases to find new, creative, innovative solutions. Now, in our case, we found a big part of the answer lies in prerequisite education for the client that improves their listening and problem discovery skills. Clearly not a place you would typically look to solve this problem. And we're still looking, right? We're looking further down the road at enhancements in virtual reality, solutions like Virbela. For those of you who've seen that, it's a pretty interesting environment for education and for consulting engagements. So we're going to take a look at that. But this concept of learning and unlearning and relearning is not new news. Jeff, next chart. For those of you who read it, the book Future Shock in 1970 called this out perfectly. Alvin Toffler, I got to know him when I was at IBM. He became a pen pal of mine. He nailed it, right? He said the illiterate of the 21st century is not those who can't read or write, it's those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And it wasn't just him, right? You can look at, next slide, Jeff. You can look at many different folks. You can look at Henry David Thoreau, who we have a quote on this. We can look at Kathy Davidson, who is doing a tremendous amount of work on how we need to change education for our college students. And we can also go back to ancient Greece. When you start seeing this same thing over and over, this preponderance of this point, well, it's truth. And as Mark Twain always liked to say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And there's one more place, perhaps a little bit more popular, that you might have seen this philosophy, right? Yoda himself, right? You must unlearn what you have learned. Doesn't matter where you look, the lesson's the same. Which leads me back to our conference and all the things we want to elevate, right? Jeff talked about a couple. I did a little word salad here on a lot of the different words that you've used in some of the surveys that you sent back to us. These are the things that we have to elevate as we face these new realities. And in fact, some are more important than others, because they really will become the keys to your personal success. So if you remember my punchline about who's going to end up in the C-suite, the way you put yourself in the running is to ensure customer marketing creates impact. And we've even come up with a little bit of a formula to describe this for you to think about. Formula is real simple. Impact is the multiplication of your opportunity to excel times your ability to drive influence. And when we talk about opportunity to excel, I define that as your knowledge and your experience and your prior performance, all the things that have brought you to this point, right? That's the opening bid, right? That you've got to have. It's the jacks or better to play. But that's got to get multiplied times the percentage of your work tied to strategic growth initiatives. Jeff talked about this a few moments ago, right? If you're not working on the issues that stem from what we just discussed, I'm not going to suggest that what you're doing isn't important, but you're not as directly on the radar of the senior executives in your company. And your assignment or your challenge is to figure out how to do that. Now, how do you do that? That's the ability to influence. Well, and I look at that as the degree of your foresight times the degree of your confidence. I have been someone who has followed people like Alvin Toffler or John Nesbitt or Joel Barker or Isaac Asimov my entire life. I've followed the futurists, right? And there are many. Following them is how you get foresight. It's how you can get into what I call the mode of if this, then that thinking. And once you get there, then what it comes down to is, are you willing to put your company badge on the table and say, this is what I believe? What's your degree of confidence? You'd be surprised, maybe you'd be surprised. I think you'd be surprised how many people have great ideas, but don't have the confidence to put them on the table. And that is a missed opportunity, not only for them, but for their companies. So that's a bit of my, that's the message that I kind of want you to have. You know, I think in 2020, we find ourselves at this inflection point, right? These long-standing assumptions and hidden biases that exist in businesses that have been run for 25 or 40 years, right? They're giving way to a new understanding. And for all of us, that all starts with the customer. The answer lies with the customer. The organizations that act on this will thrive, and those that don't will struggle and perhaps even disappear. Now, we've got a few minutes left here, and what I wanted to do, some of you were kind enough to share your responses to a survey that we sent out. And I'm not going to make you read through these charts completely. We'll make these available to you so you can read through them. I would also welcome anybody who hasn't participated already. We're going to keep that survey open, and you can think of these results as preliminary. But we would love to get some more responses into this. One of the questions that we asked was, you know, how has COVID-19 impacted you? And there are some very obvious answers. No more live events. Everything's moved online. Some lucky person has had only slight impact from COVID-19. But I highlighted two here. right? And it's this notion about doing more testing and experimenting, right? This brand new landscape of understanding what matters to our customers in this brave new world. I will tell you again, in my analytics business, we have an analytics model that's all about answering 3 questions. It's, you know, what's changed in terms of what your customers need? You know, do your products or services still address those needs? And lastly, do you have the competency and capability on your team to make the shift? This is really key. This whole discussion about re-understanding the customer. And it's going to be crucial to everyone's success. I also call out that second one about making campaigns more human. Mark Schaefer talks a lot about this in his book, Marketing Rebellion, that the most human company will win. And that book is just chock full of examples of why that's the right strategy to go forward. All right, Jeff, let's flip to the next one, please. How has it changed your planning process in 2021? Well, client stories have become more important, right, as a sales validation tool. And that seems to make an awful lot of sense in light of not only COVID-19, I would argue this was going on before. COVID-19 just accelerates the need for it. The second thing I've highlighted there is this fact that, you know, everybody's thinking about their own virtual events, but there actually are a ton of virtual events one could participate in. We thank you for coming to ours, but they're kind of all over the lot, and it can be very overwhelming. So one of the things I think you can share with your peers, perhaps as you have some networking time this week, is the ones that you found to be most worthy. And then this last one, perhaps was the most detailed comment that we got, right? And it's about optimizing customer journeys. And a number of you commented on refocusing on customer journey. And this is because it will point you to those new problems, those modifications in the problems that customers have. So I don't know who it was. I wasn't able to discern who actually wrote this one in. But how much time do we have here? We got enough time. Hey, if you recognize that quote, would you please open up your mic? I'd love for you to comment a little bit more on this one. That's probably the person who's just entered the waiting room is probably the person that made that comment. Well, you never know what's going to happen live. So, but I will tell you that one really caught my eye. This notion of a customer-centric directional matrix. We're going to follow up on that and make sure we get something on that out to you. Let's go to the next one, Jeff. What are you planning to do differently in 2021? A lot more video. Right? That was underway before. We all know the effectiveness of video. But also this notion of improving the quality and consistency of video. I saw some debate in the survey results about that having the raw comments from the customer in whatever level of video you could get is seen as a plus. But this makes a lot of sense as well. I also would be remiss if I didn't point out that second one at the top of the second column. Lots of folks are still struggling to gain organizational buy-in. And there will be discussions about how to tackle that problem this week as well. Again, comments on customer journey and again, understanding what motivates our customers. Let's look at some of the pie charts that came out of this, Jeff. This one looks at whether executive interest and involvement has changed for you guys this year. And notice significant increase in almost 40% of the cases. Perhaps not a surprise. The interesting thing would be whether you all view it as positive, a positive development. I would hope it is. But you can see between that and a slight increase You got a significant uptick.
And Howard, anybody who doesn't look at that as a positive, hopefully will by the end of this week.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
Right. Because I'm encouraged by this result here that almost 40% of executives are saying they're really sticking their nose in these programs because they want to make sure they're steering them in the right way.
Perfect. Yep. And of course, no significant decreases. So that's another good sign. All right, let's flip over to the next one. We asked the question, how are your executives describing what they expect from the customer programs? And I've kind of highlighted that set of 5 in the middle, right? Increasing customer satisfaction, kind of a traditional approach, improving customer acquisition, accelerating sales cycles. That's a natural response to the fact that in some cases, sales cycles are elongating at this point. And improve retention rates. I think, Jeff, when you get to the discussion later today, the fireside chat, that one's going to really come into focus, because obviously we know it takes more effort to get a new customer than to keep an old one, and clearly, in this environment, you want to keep the ones that you have.
And Howard, this shift, or I should say this focus on improving retention rates on behalf of the C-suite really started around April with COVID. I mean, it just accelerated because they were realizing, hey, we don't know how long this is going to last. There's still a lot of uncertainty today, but there was even more uncertainty back in April. And so that one that we've seen really peak then, and accelerate then. And it's only getting more and more important that this focus is, we have to double down on our existing customers because we just don't know how hard it's going to be to acquire new customers. Perfect.
And of course, then the last one, is obviously our thesis here. Our hypothesis is that we've got the real opportunity for all of us is to drive customer marketing alignment with strategic growth initiatives. All right, next one, Jeff. We were going to have some fun with this one, right? We wondered how much collaboration you were all getting. You'll notice the 4 individuals who are purple, who unfortunately are still swimming against the tide in terms of getting assistance from the rest of the organization. But by and large, most people across the organization are interested. I would say this one really does need to shift, though. If we're going to succeed, then the insights that get created in customer marketing and in voice of customer and all the aspects of what we're talking about in this conference really needs to become the basis for decision making in a lot of these ancillary and collaborating organizations.
And I just want to encourage the 10 or so people who responded with people climb over each other to get involved. That's quite a statement. So if you're not already presenting a session, we want you to actively participate in some of the sessions that are coming up, because this is, I talk to customer marketers every day, maybe 4 or 5 conversations a day, both my clients, prospects, just people in the industry. And people struggle, with this. This is one of the hardest things to do because we don't have authority. And that's why it's one of our subway lines here for the whole conference, is to really focus on this issue.
Okay, next, Jeff. How has the customer willingness changed this year? And that was really encouraging, right? Your customers are all looking for answers, and they are more willing to participate in your programs to help find them. There is a slight decrease in some cases, but by and large, you're looking at probably 85% are either unchanged or increasing. So another good sign that the customer wants to play the game with you. And again, we'll get into this a little bit more on Thursday.
And I think this also relates to the point I made earlier about how customers are telling senior executives that they want to interact with other customers. And I've seen that even accelerate during COVID, because they're trying to really share, how are you dealing with COVID? And that was a big theme, I remember, in April and May. And we were working with a lot of companies that were gathering insights from their customers about how they're either ensuring business continuity or keeping employee morale high, things like that, that related to their domains as it relates to responding to COVID. And so this is very good that customers are willing to engage. And so this is something, and I think this is one of those lasting things that we'll see, one of those lasting impacts of COVID. I don't think this is just going to be a temporary thing.
And the next one also adds some color to that story, as to whether or not the customers are becoming more forthcoming in the stories they're willing to share, right? Basically we've got about close to 40% of customers who are sharing more. And again, a very encouraging sign, and tying back to the point that Jeff just made about looking to connect with other customers.
And Howard, it just would be worth explaining. The reason we wanted to ask this is because we're going to be talking, we have the whole subway line talking about, innovating and new ways of doing content and customer stories and things like that. And so, so one of the things we want people, that we'll be talking about this week is how to get customers to actually, and we say be more forthcoming, actually share more of the experiences that they've had. And because I interview so many customers of my clients, and I have conversations with them, and they're so willing to share, especially when they're talking to somebody outside the company. But another thing that, relating to the prior question that I've encountered is, even though we've had that big percentage of people that responded that their customers are more willing to participate, I oftentimes hear from their customers when I'm interviewing them or talking to them that, hey, I would have loved to have done this 3 years ago. They just never asked. and so there's also a dynamic there that, your customers, this is showing you that your customers are actually more willing to participate than you sometimes assume.
Perfect. And Lisa Kittredge, I just saw your comment, and everybody should take a look at it. I will simply say amen. It's about time. So very good. I'd love to chat with you separately. Maybe we'll get some time to do that. Another look here at budgets, right? No change in 57% of the cases. I don't remember whether we asked what you're seeing for 2021. What's the next chart, Jeff? Yep, there we go. So you'll see that, clearly about more than 50% of you expect an increase next year. So those of you who are not in that category, you're going to want to reach out to some of your peers here and figure out what they're doing. Let's go to the next one, Jeff. I want to make sure we kind of come in on time. And this particular chart is from the survey respondents, is what people are doing to keep or to convince the business to keep or increase their budget and resources in 2021. You'll notice the first four are highlighted because they use the word impact. Demonstrating impact, back to that point I made earlier on the formula, continues to be extremely important and has many dimensions to it. Also the need for metrics and the need for customer-centric strategies. So probably not a lot of surprises in here, but again, I suspect we're going to hear more from folks over the course of the week. Next one, Jeff.
And Howard, we have a 2-minute warning.
Yep, I know. One capability, if you had it, that would make a difference. I'm going to let you read through this. I'll call your attention to the last one that's highlighted, which basically says they get too much data in too many places. That is the bozo no-no of customer marketing, right? And something that if you haven't resolved that one yet, it's the first thing, one of the first things you have to resolve. Next one, Jeff. And I'm going to leave this one for you all to read. We asked, what's one question you would like your peers to answer during or after the conference? We'll get this out so you can see it. it also positions us for future surveys. So thank you very much for helping crowdsource that. Next one. I think the next one's my last. So again, back to my punchline, right? The world's changing. It's accelerating things that were already underway, but the importance of what we're doing in customer insights and programs, it's only increasing. It's increasing exponentially. And if you have a desire to move into executive roles in your firms, this knowledge, this ability, this skill, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely a prerequisite going forward. So I thank you all for your time. Jeff, back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Howard. That's great. Hopefully that gives everybody kind of the macro view from a career senior executive and the view of that world that we're all living in now. But I hope you also recognize it as not something that's scary, but something that's a big opportunity, because it really is. And that's what this conference is all about. Just going back to this slide here about the questions that you want to have for your peers to answer during our conference. Well, this could also be after the conference. One thing I want to tee up is on next Monday's wrap-up session, we're going to be talking about the CustomerX cohorts. And so we're going to take these topics as well as others that get nominated during the week and have people, and we're going to create birds of a feather groups that will be able to get together afterwards, dig into these issues, help each other. You could call them accountability groups if you like, but it's just the idea of let's take some of these big hairy topics and pull together groups of people that really want to dive in and work on them. Okay, so keep in mind, if you didn't get a chance to take the survey, please do, or just please let us know during the week if you want to nominate a topic for these cohorts. Coming up next, we have David Meerman Scott. David is the author of Fanocracy, Turning Fans into Customers and Customers into Fans, and I'll be introducing him in just a few moments.